Welcome back to the channel. Today's story is about a boy they blamed for a crime, and what happened next silenced everyone. In a quiet village where dust rose gently with every footstep, people loved to talk. If a goat sneezed, 5 houses would hear it. If a pot broke, 10 mouths would shape the story before sunset. The boy lived at the edge of the village with his widowed mother. Their hut was small but neat. He fetched water before sunrise, swept their yard, and still ran to the market to help traders carry baskets. He was not loud. He was not troublesome. He simply moved like a soft breeze no one noticed. Then one afternoon, the chief's golden wristwatch disappeared. The watch shined like morning light. The chief wore it proudly, even while resting under the mango tree. When it vanished, the village reacted as if the sky had cracked open. Eyes searched. Tongues moved fast. And somehow, like dry leaves chasing the wind, whispers ran straight to the boy. He passes near the chief's house. He is poor. Who else could it be? The boy stood in the center of the square, confused. His hands were dusty from carrying yam sacks. His eyes searched for one friendly face, but even neighbors stepped back as if he carried smoke. The guards held his arms and pulled him forward. His mother cried, her wrapper loosening as she begged them to listen. She said her son feared even stepping on an ant. Fear spreads faster than truth. The villagers shook their heads. Some clicked their tongues. A few children stared at him as if he had grown horns overnight. The boy did not shout. He did not struggle. He only said quietly, "I did not take it." The words floated in the air. No one caught them. By evening, they locked him inside the old storage hut near the chief's compound. The elders would decide his fate in the morning. As the sun sank and shadows stretched long like tired arms, the village felt proud of its quick judgment. Inside the dark hut, the boy sat alone. A thin crack in the wall let in a line of fading light. He whispered again, softer this time, "I did not take it." Sometimes silence listens better than people do. Night settled gently over the village, but sleep refused to enter many homes. It was not every day a thief was caught so quickly. Some villagers felt proud. Others felt curious. A few just wanted a good story to chew on before morning. Inside the storage hut, the boy sat on the bare floor. The air smelled of old grain and dry wood. A small rat ran past him, paused, then ran again as if it also had important business. He almost smiled. His wrists were not tied, but the wooden door was thick. Outside, 2 guards sat on low stools. They spoke in low voices, laughing at small jokes. To them, this was simple. A thief caught. Case closed. But the boy's heart was not restless. He replayed the afternoon in his mind. He remembered carrying yam sacks. He remembered passing by the chief's compound. He remembered seeing someone step out through the back gate in a hurry. A tall figure. A blue cloth. And something shiny tucked into a pocket. At the time, he thought nothing of it. Why would he? People rush all the time. Now that memory sat in his head like a stubborn guest. Outside the hut, something else moved. A shadow passed quietly behind the chief's house. Not slow. Not careful. Just confident. Like someone who believed no one was watching. In the chief's compound, the chief himself could not sleep. He kept turning on his mat. The missing watch bothered him, but something else bothered him more. He had not lost that watch inside the house. He clearly remembered removing it outside, near the well, when he washed his hands before eating. He sat up suddenly. If it was taken near the well, how did the boy steal it when he never entered the compound? The thought tapped his mind again. Meanwhile, near the market path, A small child bent down to tie her wrapper and saw something glimmering under a pile of dry leaves. She blinked. It was shiny. Very shiny. She looked around. No one noticed her. The night was quiet, but truth had started to stretch its legs. And morning was coming faster than the village expected. Morning arrived like a whisper, soft and golden. Birds chirped, unaware of the tension that had gripped the village. The villagers gathered again, murmuring among themselves, waiting for the elders to speak. Some looked at the boy with suspicion. Others watched with curiosity, wondering if the night had changed anything. The boy was brought out of the hut. His feet dragged slightly on the dusty ground. He kept his head low, but his eyes searched for someone who might believe him. His mother followed, holding her wrapper tightly around her shoulders, worry written on every line of her face. The chief sat under the old baobab tree, elders surrounding him in a semicircle. Their faces were serious. They did not speak immediately. Silence held the square like a heavy cloth. Then one elder, a thin man with a long beard, leaned forward and asked the boy, "Why should we believe you did not take the watch?" The boy swallowed and spoke calmly. "I passed by the chief's house, yes. I carried yams. I fetched water. But I did not touch the watch. I would not take what is not mine." Some villagers whispered, shaking their heads. Others snorted quietly, unconvinced. But the chief frowned, rubbing his chin. Something about the boy's eyes felt different, honest, yet not begging for mercy. Just then, a small voice called from the edge of the crowd. A little girl stepped forward, holding something shiny in her tiny hands. She walked straight to the chief and lifted the object. The crowd gasped. It was the golden watch. All eyes turned to the boy. He blinked, staring at the watch in the girl's hands. The whispers of blame that had weighed him down yesterday seemed to vanish in the sunlight. People looked at him differently now. Relief, surprise, and shame mixed in the villagers' expressions. The chief's frown softened. He looked at the boy and said, "It seems we acted too quickly." He paused, letting the words settle in the quiet morning. Not every shadow is a thief. Sometimes, the truth hides where we least expect it. The boy's mother hugged him tightly, tears of relief streaming down her face. The village, once ready to judge and punish, learned a lesson in patience, observation, and the danger of rushing to blame. And the boy, who had been silenced by fear and accusation, now stood quietly, his dignity restored. The villagers could hardly believe what had just happened. Whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into quiet laughter, then laughter softened into thoughtful silence. Everyone had learned, in that short morning, how fast assumptions could mislead even the wisest. The boy, still standing near his mother, noticed some of the same villagers who had pointed fingers yesterday now avoided eye contact. Their pride had dimmed, replaced by quiet shame. He did not gloat. He did not call them out. He simply stood, feeling the sun on his shoulders, and breathed a little easier. The chief, adjusting his golden watch back onto his wrist, called the boy closer. "You have patience," he said, his voice low but firm. "You did not cry or shout. You let truth show itself. That takes more strength than many of us possess." The boy nodded silently, unsure what to say. He had learned long ago that words sometimes scatter too quickly, but actions, even small ones, could hold more power. Later, as the village began to return to its routine, children played near the well where the watch had been found. Their laughter was bright, carrying over the dusty paths. The boy helped his mother carry water, but now some neighbors offered small smiles, a quiet respect forming where suspicion had lived. Yet the boy did not forget the lesson the night had taught him. He knew that fear could cloud minds and that judgment often moved faster than reason. He also understood that sometimes, help could come from the smallest, most unexpected places: a little girl, a gentle whisper, a crack of moonlight. By evening, he sat outside their hut, watching shadows stretch across the yard. His mother prepared dinner inside, humming softly. The village's excitement had calmed, but the memory of the false blame lingered like a shadow over the edges of his thoughts. He allowed it to sit there without anger, letting it remind him to remain humble, careful, and patient. That night, the boy lay on his mat under the open sky. The stars were quiet, yet they seemed to shimmer a little brighter than usual. Perhaps it was the lesson of the day. Perhaps it was the simple truth that even in the smallest heart, courage could shine and silence could carry more meaning than noise. And somewhere in the village, the chief looked at his watch, smiled faintly, and remembered that not all appearances tell the whole story. The next morning, life in the village returned to a quiet rhythm, but something had shifted. People no longer whispered about the boy as if he carried misfortune. Instead, there was a new sense of respect, subtle and slow, like the rising sun brushing the tops of the mud houses. The boy woke early, as usual, and went to fetch water. The well was crowded with children laughing and calling out, but this time, some older villagers nodded at him as he passed. It was a small acknowledgement, but it meant more than words could say. At the market, he helped carry baskets, just like before, but traders now offered him small smiles, and one even handed him an extra cola nut for his effort. The boy accepted quietly, not proud, only grateful that the day felt lighter. Meanwhile, the chief called a meeting under the baobab tree. He wanted to remind the village that judgment must be careful. "We have seen how quickly we can blame the innocent," he said, his voice steady. "And how easily truth can find its way, even when hidden." Some villagers nodded, others looked down. The boy watched from a distance, understanding that patience often needed to be learned the hard way. Later that afternoon, he noticed the little girl who had found the watch playing near the edge of the village. She waved shyly at him. He waved back. There was no need for thanks, her small act had already spoken volumes. As the sun dipped behind the distant hills, the boy returned home with his mother. She smiled softly, her eyes warm with relief. "You have shown strength, my son," she whispered. "Not with your hands, but with your heart." He nodded, letting the words settle. Strength was quiet sometimes. It didn't need to shout or push. Sometimes, it was simply standing still while the world tried to move too quickly. That evening, the village hummed with life. Smoke from cooking fires curled into the air. Children ran barefoot along dusty paths. Dogs barked softly. And the boy, sitting at the edge of their small hut, felt a gentle pride that was calm, quiet, and honest. He understood something the village might take longer to learn: innocence is fragile, patience is powerful, and truth always has a way of reaching the light. Days passed, and the story of the missing watch slowly faded from the village chatter, but its lesson remained. People moved more cautiously with their words, thinking twice before pointing fingers. The boy, however, returned to his daily routine as if nothing had changed, though his eyes carried a quiet awareness. Early one morning, while sweeping the yard, he noticed a stranger approaching. The man was tall, dressed in faded clothes, and walked with a limp. Villagers paused to watch from a distance, curious about the unusual visitor. The boy greeted him politely, unsure why the stranger had come. "I heard about you," the man said softly. "They say you did not take what was not yours, even when everyone blamed you. That is a rare kind of courage." The boy tilted his head, not fully understanding. "I only told the truth," he said. The man smiled faintly. "Sometimes, telling the truth feels simple, but it can change everything. Would you help me?" Curious, the boy nodded. The man led him to the edge of the village, near the river. There, a small fishing net had torn, leaving the men struggling to carry it. Without hesitation, the boy lifted part of the net and helped the men to the shore. As they worked, the stranger spoke of life beyond the village, of towns where people often judged too quickly, and of lessons learned the hard way. The boy listened carefully, realizing that the world outside might be louder, faster, and less patient than his quiet village. By the time the net was repaired, the stranger nodded appreciatively. "You have the heart to stand firm, to see truth clearly. Keep it. The world needs more like you." The boy returned home, his steps lighter than before. He felt a sense of pride that was neither loud nor boastful. His mother watched him from the doorway, noticing a subtle change in his posture, a quiet confidence that had grown from patience, endurance, and truth. As the sun began to dip behind the hills, the village seemed calmer, gentler, and perhaps a little wiser. The boy understood that life would present new challenges, but he now carried a strength that came from knowing himself and trusting the quiet power of honesty. The night arrived, and for the first time in many days, he slept without worry. The world had tested him, but he had remained steadfast, and that was a victory no one could take away. The next morning, the boy woke to the sounds of roosters and children laughing along the dusty paths. Life in the village had returned to its usual rhythm, but a subtle respect followed him like a shadow. People no longer whispered behind his back. Instead, they nodded politely or offered small smiles as he passed. He went about his chores, fetching water and helping his mother sweep the yard, but he felt a quiet change inside him. The events of the past days had taught him patience, courage, and the weight of truth. He realized that sometimes, the smallest actions could speak louder than the loudest words. At the market, traders greeted him with polite nods. One merchant handed him a small bundle of yams, not as charity, but as acknowledgement of his hard work and honesty. The boy accepted quietly, not proud, just understanding that respect could grow in unexpected ways. As he walked back home, he noticed children playing near the well. They laughed and chased each other, their bare feet kicking up dust. He smiled faintly. The same well had caused him so much trouble a few days ago, but now it seemed like a place of simple joy. His mother called him in for breakfast. She had prepared a small meal, humming softly as she worked. "You have done well," she said, her eyes soft but serious. Not every boy would have held his courage when everyone doubted him. He nodded, letting her words settle. Strength, he realized, was not about fighting or shouting. It was about standing firm, knowing the truth, and allowing life to reveal itself in its own time. Later, he went to the village square, curious to see how others were moving on. He noticed some of the older villagers speaking quietly with each other, perhaps reflecting on their own quick judgments. For the first time, he felt the village might be learning something deeper than gossip or pride. As the sun sank low behind the hills, painting the sky with gold and crimson, the boy returned home. He helped his mother carry water for the evening chores and watched shadows stretch across the yard. He felt a quiet pride, calm and steady, knowing that courage and honesty had a way of quietly shaping the world. Night fell, and the boy lay on his mat, listening to the distant sounds of the village. The events of the past days had tested him, but he had remained steadfast. He closed his eyes, letting the cool night air brush over him, feeling stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever might come next. The days that followed were calm, but the boy felt a quiet awareness in everything he did. Villagers no longer glared or whispered. Even those who had been quick to judge him now gave a polite nod or a soft smile as he passed by. It was a subtle change, but one that made the boy feel both lighter and more careful. One morning, while fetching water from the river, he noticed a group of children struggling to lift a heavy basket of fruit. Without hesitation, he stepped forward and helped them. They laughed and thanked him, and he simply nodded, enjoying the small moment without expecting anything in return. Later, he returned to the village square, where a few elders were speaking quietly with the chief. Their expressions were serious, but not harsh. The boy paused nearby, curious but patient. He could sense that they were discussing the lessons learned from the incident with the watch, perhaps reminding themselves to act slowly and judge carefully in the future. At home, his mother noticed his calm demeanor and smiled softly. "You have grown," she said. "Not in height, but in heart." He did not reply, only let her words sink in. Strength, he understood now, was quiet, steady, and often unseen. As the afternoon sun dipped low, the boy wandered to the edge of the village, where tall grass swayed gently in the breeze. He watched the golden light fall over the huts and the paths, feeling a sense of connection to the world around him. He realized that courage was not always about defending oneself loudly. Sometimes, it was about keeping truth alive quietly, even when everyone doubted you. That evening, the village hummed with ordinary life. Smoke rose from cooking fires, and children ran barefoot across the dusty paths. The boy helped his mother prepare dinner, and as they worked together, he felt a subtle sense of belonging. He understood that life could test him, but each challenge was an opportunity to hold steady, to remain patient, and to let truth shine in its own time. Night fell, and the boy lay on his mat under the open sky. Stars twinkled faintly above, silent witnesses to his growth. He had faced blame, fear, and doubt, yet he had remained steadfast. In that quiet, he found a strength that would stay with him, ready to meet whatever life might bring next. The next morning brought a soft breeze that stirred the village dust along the paths. Life had returned to its rhythm, but the boy felt a quiet change in how people moved around him. No one whispered behind his back now. Instead, there was cautious respect, as if the villagers had learned something important about judging too quickly. He walked to the well, carrying a small clay pot to fetch water. Children ran past, laughing, and one even waved at him. He smiled faintly, realizing that life could still hold simple joys, even after storms of suspicion and fear. The sun reflected off the pot, sending tiny sparks of light into the air, and he paused for a moment, feeling the warmth on his face. Later, he helped his mother sweep their small yard, careful not to disturb the dust in the bright sunlight. She hummed softly, glancing at him with pride. "You have learned patience," she said quietly. "And patience is stronger than anger, stronger than fear." He nodded, understanding that her words carried more weight than any praise. In the village square, elders gathered under the baobab tree to discuss matters quietly, and the chief watched from his seat. The boy paused nearby, noticing that their voices were softer, deliberate. They were learning, slowly, that quick judgments often carried consequences that were unfair and heavy. By afternoon, the boy wandered near the marketplace. Traders and villagers moved about their daily tasks, some stopping to greet him politely. A woman offered him a small bundle of fresh yams, a gesture of goodwill rather than charity. He accepted with a nod, feeling a quiet satisfaction in the simple acknowledgement. As evening approached, shadows stretched long across the dusty village paths. The boy returned home with his mother, helping her carry water. They moved together in silence, the day's calm wrapping around them like a soft cloth. That night, under the open sky, the boy lay on his mat. Stars twinkled faintly above, and he felt a deep calm in his chest. He had faced blame, fear, and doubt, yet he remained steadfast. Life had taught him lessons in patience, courage, and the quiet strength of truth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he felt ready, carrying the lessons of the past firmly in his heart. The next morning, the village woke to soft sunlight spilling over the mud huts and dusty paths. Life had settled into its quiet rhythm, but the boy walked with a new calm, a confidence that came from having faced false blame and survived with honesty. The villagers no longer saw him as the boy who had been accused, they now saw someone steady, patient, and true. He went about his chores, helping his mother fetch water and carry firewood. Along the way, neighbors smiled and greeted him warmly. Even those who had once whispered behind their hands now nodded respectfully. The boy understood that respect was earned quietly, not demanded loudly. At the village square, children played near the well. One of them picked up a small stone, tossing it gently in the air and catching it. The boy paused and smiled, remembering how the same well had brought him so much trouble days ago. Now, it seemed like a place where lessons could be learned, where innocence and truth could shine through small acts. Later, the chief walked past, golden watch glinting in the sun. He looked at the boy, not with suspicion, but with acknowledgement. The boy nodded politely. No words were needed, the chief's gaze carried its own message. Fairness and patience matter more than rushing to judgment. As the afternoon deepened, the boy helped repair a small fence near his home, working with careful hands and steady heart. His mother watched from the doorway, proud but quiet, letting him feel the satisfaction of doing what was right without praise or fanfare. When the sun began to sink behind the hills, casting long shadows across the village, the boy sat outside their hut. The air smelled of cooking fires and fresh earth. He thought of the lessons he had learned: patience, courage, honesty, and the quiet strength that comes from standing firm. Night came gently. Stars twinkled above, and the boy lay on his mat under the open sky. The village was calm, children were asleep, and the world felt peaceful. He had faced blame and fear, yet he remained steadfast. Life had tested him, and he had grown stronger. He closed his eyes, carrying the lessons in his heart, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring, knowing that truth and patience could silence even the loudest doubt.